Hey folks, welcome to Phantoms and Monsters Radio. For more than 15 years, I have quietly tracked reports that most people would dismiss in seconds. They're not winged humanoids, and they're not traditional UFO craft. They're not birds, bats, drones. They're described as enormous manta ray swimming through the sky. Now, many times they're translucent. They're very silent, undulating like sea life moving through water. And now tonight I'm presenting, multiple independent encounters spanning nearly 2 decades. Different states, different witnesses, different lighting conditions, river corridors, inland lakes, coastal shorelines, urban bridges, rural farms. And through all of them, the same form persists. Now, over the years, I've developed several working hypotheses. These may be biological craft, living constructs rather than mechanical vehicles. They may represent ultraterrestrial entities operating alongside us but rarely visible. They could originate from a parallel dimension where such organisms maybe are native, possibly possessing cloaking abilities similar to what witnesses described in Glimmerman encounters. And the repeated water adjacency may not be a coincidence. Rivers, lakes, shorelines, bayous, the connection is too consistent to ignore. So tonight we're going to examine the data. Not the mythology, just the data. So this first account occurred in December 3rd, 2004, and this is actually the first account I ever received about this. The time was between 6 and 7 p.m. in the evening. Clear, starting to get dark. The moon hadn't risen yet. They were traveling south on Route 2 in West Virginia from Point Pleasant to Huntington near Ashton, West Virginia. Now again, I said Point Pleasant, so here we got another phenomena happening around that area. So the witness states, "Hi Lon, a friend and I were traveling south on Route 2 toward Huntington, West Virginia. I was on my way to set up my booth for an art show, so my mind was focused on logistics. We had just crossed the railroad tracks outside of Ashton and we're on a long straight stretch of road. Now there was distant oncoming traffic with headlights on, but no cars behind us in sight. I was in the passenger seat while my friend drove. Then suddenly I noticed movement in the sky over the Ohio River to my right, directly in front of the car. It was a grayish, smooth winged shape that swooped in a figure-8 motion in front of the windshield before vanishing to our left. Now, it didn't simply fly out of sight, it was just gone. This happened very quickly, but as a visual artist, it has been etched in my memory. Now, it was larger than a car, with a wingspan wider than the two-lane road we were on. The wings seemed to stretch wider as it performed the figure-8 swoop. It never flew more than 25 feet from us, and at one point it was only about 5 feet off the pavement, leading us to think it had crashed into the windshield. Now this creature, or whatever it was gray and translucent, like a jellyfish, and as it banked and swooped, I could see it from many angles. It appeared more transparent as certain parts turned towards us. I immediately thought it would resemble a manta-ray. Its body was flat like a manta-ray or bat, with long, smooth wings that were pointed at the tips. I saw no texture or roughness, only a smooth surface. It had only a body and wings, no head, eyes, tail, or feet. It did not look humanoid in any way, nor did it resemble a bird. Its movements were more like something in the ocean. It didn't flap its wings like a bird or flutter like a bat, but rather stretched them out instead. My friend, who sadly passed away a year ago, mentioned that the wings looked ragged, as if pieces were falling off of it. He also saw the underside, which appeared gray and smooth. Now, this was absolutely not a machine. It was articulated like a living creature and seemed entirely organic. Now, in retrospect, I wonder if it was something playing with us. The encounter happened so quickly that the only scary moment was when we thought it would crash into the windshield. It was incredibly beautiful and strange. It reminded me more of a sea creature than anything else. Perhaps the air is like water to them. Now, the only other time I've seen anything remotely similar was in 2000 in Clay County, West Virginia. I was driving along a one-lane road by the Elk River. In that case, I was alone and for about a mile. I kept noticing a shimmer in front of the car about 15 foot ahead. This was late morning in the summer. The shimmer remained at the same distance ahead of the car for several minutes until I noticed a large bird-shaped shadow on the road. And when I looked up, I saw a large crow flying above me. However, the first thing I saw in front of the car was not a shadow. It was a disturbance in the air that looked like a heat mirage, but very close. This was a curvy country road right by the river. I had never seen heat mirages on the road before or since. Now, at the time, I thought it was just unusual. Very close to that time, I also had a vivid dream of which I was in my car, flying over the river near the place where I had seen the shadow. Now, as an artist, I'm open to many possibilities and explanations. I believe that the unseen world is just a small vibrational frequency away. And as a child, I was fascinated by fairies and nature spirits and spent a lot of time alone in the outdoors. So this sighting carries several markers that separate it from conventional avian misidentifications. First, the location. Route 2 along the Ohio River corridor near Point Pleasant sits inside a historically anomalous region. That corridor has produced repeated reports of aerial entities that did not conform to known biological or mechanical profiles. Now, the proximity to the river is not incidental. In both 2004 and 2000, water was present. Rivers are consistent geographic anchors in many atmospheric anomaly reports. Second, the movement pattern. A deliberate figure eight swoop directly in front of the windshield at close range, followed by instantaneous disappearance, suggests controlled maneuvering rather than a drift or glide. The object did not exit the visual field gradually. It terminated. That distinction matters. Witnesses frequently describe these entities as behaving more like aquatic organisms navigating a dense medium than birds move through air. Third, the morphology. No head, no visible eyes, no tail, no feet, no flapping, extended fluid wing articulation. Translucent gray surface resembling a jellyfish or manta ray. The description aligns with prior reports of so-called sky manta phenomena, often characterized by smooth surfaces, absent of anatomical detail and semi-transparency. Now, the articulated banking motion reinforces the biological impression. Now, the early 2000s shimmer event adds depth. A fixed distance atmospheric distortion ahead of the vehicle, resembling a heat mirage but localized and mobile. That suggests either cloaking behavior or perpetual distortion preceding visual manifestation. Now, the later dream of flying above the river may indicate psychological imprinting, though it does not invalidate the sighting. It shows cognitive engagement after the event. Now, the artist's background is relevant. Visual training increases observational retention and spatial recall. The detail about the wing raggedness report by the second witness introduces independent confirmation with a slight variation, which strengthens rather than weakens credibility. The witness interprets air as water. That anthology appears repeatedly in global accounts of non-avian aerial fauna. Whether biological, interdimensional, or atmospheric plasma-based, the behavioral signature is consistent with entities moving through a denser, unseen medium. Now, this case establishes a baseline. Large-scale, low-altitude, translucent, manta-ray or manta-like, river-adjacent, and deliberate interaction. Now, if this were a single encounter along a lonely stretch of West Virginia highway, we might catalog it as an isolated anomaly, but it's not. The river corridor appears again. The aquatic anthology also appears, and the absence of anatomical features appears as well. And the behavior suggests something aware. So let's move to the next report and see whether the patterns expand or sharpen. Now, the next event took place in July 2006, between 9 and 10 p.m., just an estimate. It was a clear, bright night. The moon was very large and bright, allowing us to see every star as we moved further east, where light pollution was minimal. They were traveling west on Dune Road, and they stopped at the jetty at Hampton Bays, New York, at the end of Dune Road. Now, this is on Long Island. So the witness tells me, my experience took place in July 2006, shortly after my father had passed away. I regularly drive out to the east end of Long Island to walk on the beaches at night. It's very peaceful and isolated. Now, the beach at Hampton Bays, particularly at the jetty, is especially pleasant at night. I had been there at least 100 times without encountering anything unusual. Now, on this occasion, I took my then fiancé there to show him the phosphorescent shrimp that washed ashore, and as he had never seen them before. We parked the car and walked down to the water. The moon was very bright that night, illuminating the long stretch of beach, and we were completely alone. There were no other people on the beach, no cars parked nearby, and all establishments were closed. It's a rather remote area aside from a few scattered private residences and a few restaurants and bars. Now, a bit more about myself. I'm an artist, another artist, raised with an open mind. I'm a healthy skeptic, and I don't scare easily. Now, as soon as we stepped onto the beach, I felt a general sense of unease, a primal fear akin to sensing a predator nearby. I chose to ignore it, occasionally glancing back at the long empty stretch of beach behind us, but mostly concentrated on the tiny glowing shrimp beneath our feet. At one point, I sensed a presence, and as I've done numerous times in my 30 years, chose to disregard it. I hadn't mentioned my unease to my fiance, so he was completely unaware of it. So about 5 to 10 minutes into our short walk, we were both hunched over with his back facing the jetty and mine facing the empty beach. We began peering over my shoulder. He began peering over my shoulder, looking up into the sky. Confused, he would glance for a moment, then look away. Meanwhile, I was still trying to maintain my composure and not look. Finally, after a few minutes, he looked over my head and yelled, "Oh my God, what is that?" I turned to look, and hovering directly above us was a huge creature I had never seen before. Here's how I would describe it. It appeared translucent or transparent with no color whatsoever. There was no visible structure aside from its movement, which suggested its shape. As a visual artist, it left a lasting impression on me. The creature resembled a manta-ray, yet it was completely transparent. I could see the stars through it. The only way the structure was visible at all was because the moonlight reflected off its surface. The creature was larger than a standard sedan, with a wingspan of at least 10 feet. As it flew, its wings moved up and down. The motion was familiar, like a gull swooping down and hovering over the shoreline. It was approximately 10 to 15 feet above my head and lacked any discernible head, tail, or limbs. It moved in a way that reminded me precisely of a manta ray, only without any cephalic lobes or tail. I was completely awestruck, but my fear soon took over, and after about 30 seconds of staring at this creature, we both turned and sprinted towards the car. While running, we simultaneously jerked our head to the right in response to a glowing green light that seemed to flash twice. It was not from the light on the jetty or from a boat. The water was clear. I never looked back. And as we drove away on Dune Road, we spotted what I can only describe as two smaller rays that moved more like bats. They were flying together from right to left overhead past the car. These two were also translucent, but they had gray coloring. They were flying toward the beach where the larger creature was. Now, on the drive home, we discussed how confused we were, but didn't compare notes on what we had seen. I told him I wanted to wait until we got home to do that. As someone well-educated and fascinated by the supernatural and paranormal phenomenon, I always approach such experiences with a healthy dose of skepticism. Now, once we arrived home, I tore out 2 pages from a sketchbook, grabbed 2 pencils, and handed one of each to my fiance, instructing him to draw exactly what he had seen. I left the room to complete my own sketch, and when we finished, we placed our drawings side by side, and they were identical. That was enough confirmation for me. I immediately went online to research any reports that might explain what we had witnessed, but I couldn't find anything. It was extremely frustrating. I reported the sighting to the National UFO Reporting Center, but I still hadn't stumbled across this. So this case shifts the pattern from roadside river corridor to an open coastal shoreline, but the structural similarities remain intact. First, the environmental isolation, remote jetty, closed establishments, no nearby traffic, bright moonlight, minimal light pollution. These conditions remove common contamination variables such as aircraft glare, advertising lights, drones, or reflective debris. The witness had visual clarity. Second, dual witness reaction before visual confirmation. The primary witness felt unease prior to the sighting. The fiancé independently began looking upward without prompting. This establishes shared stimulus before verbal cueing. That matters. It reduces retroactive contamination of perception. And third, the morphology is consistent with the prior case. It was translucent. No head, visible eyes, tail, or appendages. Smooth manta-like outline defined only by reflected moonlight. Wingspan is estimated around 10 foot, low altitude, hover at 10 to 15 foot, controlled vertical wing motion. There is a difference from the West Virginia report. Now, here the wings moved up and down in a more gull-like rhythm, suggesting variable locomotion patterns. However, the core anatomical absence remains consistent. No facial features, no conventional avian structures, no rigid mechanical symmetry. The green double flash suggests an energetic component. 2 pulses, not traced to boat lights, not linked to the jetty illumination, and this may indicate a secondary manifestation or environmental interaction, though it remains inconclusive. The presence of the 2 similar rays moving in formation toward the larger one expands the behavioral profile. Grouping behavior suggests non-solitary operation. In zoological terms, this implies species-level presence rather than a singular anomaly. Now, the most compelling evidentiary feature is the independent sketch comparison. Separate drawings, no collaboration, identical structure. It's a powerful friction cost marker. It demonstrates consistency of form between observers. Again, water is present. Open ocean shoreline this time rather than a river. Both cases involve luminous or reflective surface conditions. Both involve translucent morphology. Both involve low altitude, close proximity behavior. Now, this is not a humanoid or a winged form. It's not avian. It's not mechanical. It is aquatic in movement, aerial in environment, and visually defined by absence rather than structure. That pattern is stabilizing. So now we had 2 states, 2 waterways, 2 separate years. Both witnesses describe something that does not belong in any standard field guide. Now we must ask the harder question. Are these atmospheric organisms adapting to light conditions, or are we seeing only what the moon allows us to see? So let's move to the next report and test that pattern again. So this witness states, my husband and I were grilling in our backyard one Sunday afternoon around 5 p.m. about a month ago when we saw a Pacific blue stingray-like bird flying over our home. It's approximately 1.5 to 2 feet in length and width. Now, we were sitting and chatting when it caught our attention. The creature looked down at us as it flew by. Now, we live in Atascocita, Texas, and both of us were in shock as we had never seen anything like this before. We exchanged glances, and a couple seconds later, we asked, what the heck was that? It disappeared into the trees, and we haven't seen it since. Now, this location is near a very large body of water, Lake Houston, similar to the incident that occurred in Laredo, the Lake Casablanca. And that's another case that happened in Texas. I may have it in here later. I don't know if I do or not, but it was very similar. It is possible that these cryptids or beings can live in water and fly over land. I don't know. Could it be an amphibious bird? I'd appreciate any reports or encounters related to this phenomena. If you get one, just send it to me. Now, this is the second sighting of flying ray-shaped cryptid in Texas in 2013. That previous sighting in Laredo, Texas, the witness stated, I was driving home at 1:20 p.m. when I encountered a grayish-white stingray-like creature flying over my car. It came from the lake nearby in Laredo, Texas, as it was heading towards the golf course next to it. It was roughly 3 foot wide, possibly bigger, and it glided smoothly through the air without wings, resembling a stingray. It passed about 30 foot in front of me, and I watched it for about 10 seconds. It appeared to be swimming while flying at the same time. What could this creature be? I'm a bit freaked out by this. I jumped on the internet as soon as I got home, and thankfully I found out that I'm not the only one who has seen this. I contacted the witness for further information, which I added to the initial report. Now, this is the first flying ray-shaped cryptid reported I've received out of Texas. And the sighting occurred between Casa Blanca Country Club and Lake Casa Blanca, located in East Laredo, Texas. The witness is driving northeast on Route 20. Now, this Texas cluster of these two reports introduces three important developments: daylight visibility, reduced size variation, and repeated proximity to inland lakes. First, time of day. These sightings occurred mid-afternoon and early evening, not in darkness or in moonlight. That removes lunar reflection as a necessary visual enhancer. Now, in Laredo case, the witness observed the entity for approximately 10 seconds in full daylight. That increases perceptual reliability. Second, size variability. A Atascocita sighting describes a specimen approximately 1.5 to 2 feet across. Laredo case estimates roughly 3 feet. These are significantly smaller than the West Virginia Hampton Bay reports. That may indicate juvenile forms or different species or a natural variation with that class of organisms. Third, color differentiation. The Atascocita witness described a Pacific blue hue. The Laredo case described grayish white. This diverges from the translucent models in prior cases. However, the structural core remains consistent. Stingray form, no visible head, no discernible appendages. Smooth glide swimming motion through the air. Now, the Laredo witness specifically stated that it appeared to be swimming while flying. That descriptor continues through the aquatic analogy that has now surfaced repeatedly across many states. Now, both Texas sightings occurred near substantial bodies of water, Lake Houston and Lake Casablanca. The flight paths reportedly originated near the water and moved inland. Now, that geographic pattern mirrors the river and the ocean adjacency in previous cases. Now, the Atascocita witness reported that the creature appeared to look down at them. That suggests awareness or at least head orientation behavior, even if no head was anatomically distinguishable. This detail introduces possible predator or observational behavior. There's no flapping described in either Texas account. Now, the Laredo specimen glided smoothly without visible wing articulation. That differs slightly from the Hampton Bays case where vertical motion was noted. Again, locomotion variability appears across reports. Daylight, inland freshwater, smaller scale aquatic flight pattern or behavior, stingray morphology. Now, the pattern is no longer isolated. So, either West Virginia, New York, now Texas, river corridor, ocean shoreline, inland lakes, large translucent forms, medium gray forms, smaller blue variants. If these reports are unrelated, then coincidence is escalating rapidly. If they are related, then we are looking at distributed phenomena that favors water boundaries. So let's continue and see whether the geography expands or whether the water connection tightens. But before we continue, if you're enjoying tonight's presentation and want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Phantoms of Monsters Radio. It really helps us to reach more people who are searching for answers about the unexplained. And make sure to click the notification bell so you won't miss any of our live shows. So this next witness states, "This is very hard for me to write about publicly. It was such a strange experience. And I've only told a few people because they think I'm crazy when I mention it. When I tell them that I saw a stingray fly over the street from one bunch of trees to another. We live in Richmond, Indiana. Nowhere near the ocean for one thing, but even if we lived by the ocean, why would a stingray fly into the trees? Anyway, this is what I saw on my way to work one early fall morning around 6:30 a.m. It wasn't fully light yet, but it was bright enough and the street lights lined the road. And as I approached the four-way stop with no cars around, I decided to go. I was looking downhill, following the street and seeing no vehicles. Then I glanced up and saw a huge stingray-like creature flying from one side of the street, almost like it was coming out of a group of trees and moving over the street into another group of treetops. I can only describe my reaction as astonishment. I found myself exclaiming, "Oh my God, oh my God." I began praying, asking the Lord what that could have been. It was so strange that I felt like crying. A flood of emotions ran through me after the initial astonishment. I kept questioning myself, did I really see what I saw? Did that just happen? For days I couldn't stop thinking about it. I told a couple of people, but they didn't believe me. I started looking at pictures online to try to find something comparable and came across a picture of a huge manta ray with the caption "Devil Ray." Intrigued, I did some research on demonic creatures and stingrays, which led me to a wealth of information about water spirits. Now, I truly believe that is what I saw, a demonic water spirit in the form of a stingray. Now, our town has a reputation for giving people a feeling of demonic hold, and now I believe that. This town has all kinds of problems, and if you look up water spirits, you can see the negative influence they're associated with. Now, in any case, that's what I saw, and I'm relieved to know that others have reported similar experiences. Have you seen the strange creature in the tsunami video? I think it might be the same thing. Thank you for sharing these sightings. Well, I don't know what that anthology meant, being related to a demon and such. So I contacted the witness to gather more information. They confirmed that the location was Richmond, Indiana, between South 16th and East Streets and South 12th and East Streets, overhead while they were driving west on East Street. The creature appeared grayish like a shark on top and whiter on the underneath, like a giant stingray gliding over the street. Having lived in Florida for years, I had plenty of opportunities to see stingrays, sharks, turtles, and starfish up close at various petting attractions. It's hard to explain, but you know how the edges of a stingray's wing wave as it glides through the water. Well, the edges of this creature were doing the same thing, but through the air. I barely caught a glimpse of the long tail on the back as I watched it glide. Now, there is a river, the East Fork of the Whitewater River. If you continue west on East Street, you'd encounter it at South First Street. I crossed the bridge on my way to work. So this Indiana report introduces three new variables: inland geography, early morning light, and religious interpretation layered into the observation. First, geography shift. Richmond, Indiana is not coastal. However, it's not hydrologically isolated. The East Fork of the Whitewater River runs directly through the western quarter of the sighting area. The witness crosses that river routinely. Once again, water adjacency appears within the immediate environment. Second, lighting conditions. Early fall, approximately 6:30 a.m. Not fully daylight, but illuminated by ambient dawn lights and street lights. Transitional light environments often enhance the contrast of moving silhouettes against a brighter sky background. Now, the witness saw the entity cross from one tree line to another, giving a clear lateral profile. Third, the morphology refinement. Gray dorsal surface, lighter underside, wing edges undulate in a fluid wave-like pattern consistent with aquatic stingray locomotion. A long tail was briefly observed. This is the first report in this sequence that included a visible tail. That's significant. Early cases lacked clear tail observation or reported no tail at all. The entity did not flap like a bird. It did not pivot like a drone. It glided with rolling wing margins as if pushing against resistance. That descriptor continues the repeated swimming through the air anthology found in Texas and the West Virginia accounts. The emotional and theological interpretations appear post-event. Now, the witness sought meaning and found symbolic association in the term devilry. Now, that doesn't invalidate the visual account. It simply frames the subsequent cognitive processing. Now, the pattern now includes West Virginia River corridor at night, Long Island ocean shoreline at night, Texas freshwater lakes in daytime, and in Indiana inland river corridor at dawn. Size variation remains, morphological core remains as well. Aquatic locomotion patterns remain stable. The addition of a visible tail suggests either species variation or clearly a viewing angle. Now, the water adjacency pattern is now difficult to ignore. Now, at this point, geography has expanded inland, coastal shoreline, major river systems, inland lakes, and Midwestern river corridors. If these entities require water proximity, then we should continue to see them along hydrological boundaries. If they do not, then the next report may break that pattern entirely. So let's proceed. So the witness states, "Hi, I witnessed something I can't explain, and I'm hoping you can help me. On November 2nd, around 6:30 a.m., I was driving to work eastbound on East Grand Avenue in Ingleside, Illinois. I had just passed Gavin Elementary School when I saw something that looked like a stingray or a manta-ray flying across the road, not far from Fox Lake. I almost ran up the road. It must have been 20 feet long and 20 feet wide at the wings. The color was a dull light gray, similar to the smooth plastic tarp, but not shiny like metal. It wasn't moving very quickly. There were a few cars coming in the opposite direction, but nobody seemed to react. I know it sounds strange, but I swear that's what I saw. The object had no tail and was shaped like a stingray. Now, there's no flapping of wings. It just glided across the road towards the preserve and Long Lake. I lost sight of it after it flew over the road, and it may have dropped in altitude. Now, I also wanted to mention that there have been UFO sightings in this area in the past. We're not far from Lake Michigan and north of Chicago. I appreciate any information you can provide about ray-shaped UFOs. If I hear anything else, I contact you. Thank you." So this Illinois report is structurally important. It's first scale escalation. The witness estimates approximately 20 feet in length and wingspan. That places this specimen closer to the size of the original West Virginia encounter and far larger than the Texas sightings. Size variability is confirmed across multiple states. Second, movement profile. No flapping, no rapid acceleration, slow glide across the roadway toward the preserved land and the Long Lake. The locomotion remains consistent with the swimming through the air analogy reported repeatedly in prior studies. Now, the absence of the visible propulsion reinforces the anomaly. Third, material description. Dull light gray, smooth compared to a plastic tarp. Not metallic, not reflective, like an aircraft skin. This mirrors earlier descriptions of smooth textureless surfaces. Again, no anatomical detailing such as eyes or visible head structure. Fourth, geographic correlation. Ingleside is situated within a dense lake region, Fox Lake, Long Lake, and nearby wetlands, with broader proximity to Lake Michigan. This continues the strong association between sightings and major water systems. The object's trajectory towards the preserved land and Long Lake reinforces the water adjacency pattern. Fifth, public non-reaction. Opposing traffic did not appear to respond. This could indicate angle of visibility, a limited sight window, or perceptual filtering. Large objects crossing a low altitude should provoke a reaction, yet repeated reports note either isolation or lack of third-party responses. And the tail absence in this case aligns with West Virginia and Illinois morphology, rather than the Indiana tail. This may indicate either species variation or differences in viewing angles. So at this stage, we've got multiple states, multiple years, day and night, river, ocean, lake proximity, smooth manta ray morphology, minimal to no visible head or eyes, glide-based locomotion, size range from 2 feet to 20 feet. So each report moves along water corridors. If this was a random misidentification, we'd expect greater structural inconsistency. Now, instead we're seeing repetition. The question now is whether the next case reinforces that aquatic boundary pattern or reveals a new environmental trigger altogether. So this next one just states, hello, I decided to write in due to the recent surge of attention surrounding Area 51 and the whole alien topic. Now this led to a conversation with my sister about something we experienced in our teens somewhere around 2004 or 2005. One evening about 8 p.m., my sister and I were outside with our cousin and a friend talking about who knows what. I was lying on the hood of my uncle's truck looking up into the sky when I noticed a strange movement. It was hard to see due to the light pollution in Miami, Florida. But the more I focused on it, the clearer the shape became. A sort of ray-like creature. It was about 500 feet up, moving very slowly like a ray swimming. Oddly enough, it appeared gelatinous and translucent. I immediately called the others to look up. They initially had difficulty spotting it, but as they focused, they eventually, without me saying a word, asked what it was. My friend confirmed that it looked like a stingray, so we were all struck. Now, to my surprise, two smaller ray-like creatures appeared about 50 feet away from the original one. They slowly came together, spiraling elegantly, and they disappeared towards the moon. At least it seemed that's the way as the moonlight washed out the transparent body. The wonder of that experience and the mystery of what those things were has always lingered in the back of my mind. So this Florida case reinforces the pattern and introduces altitude and group behavior dynamics. First, elevation difference. Approximately 500 feet above ground level. This is substantially higher than the low altitude road crossing reports of West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, and Texas. This suggests that, if biological, these entities are not restricted to near surface flight. If atmospheric and interdimensional, it suggests a layered operational range. Second, visual acquisition difficulty. Light pollution initially obscured the shape. Only sustained focus allowed form recognition. That parallels other accounts where translucency reduces contrast until the observer locks on to the motion. The form is defined more by distortion and movement than solid structure. Again, the morphology. Gelatinous, translucent, ray-shaped, swimming motion through the air, no rigid mechanical symmetry. No visible propulsion. This description aligns closely with the West Virginia and Hampton Bay incidents. Fourth, multi-entity convergence. Two smaller rays appear approximately 50 feet from the larger ones. They spiral together before fading toward the moonlit sky. Spiral motion suggests coordinated behavior rather than random drift. That detail strengthens the species hypothesis rather than an isolated anomaly. Fifth, independent confirmation without prompting. Observers identified the stingray likeness without being coached. That mirrors the dynamic of the New York sketch comparison. Independent perceptual agreement reduces contamination bias. Now, geographically, Miami is coastal, bordered by Biscayne Bay and the Atlantic Ocean. Again, large body of water nearby. Though the altitude was higher here, the hydrological adjacency patterns persist. Now, this case strengthens three emerging constants. Aquatic locomotion analogy, translucent gelatinous surface, and multi-entity presence in some encounters. Size, altitude, and light conditions variability remain flexible. Structural form remains stable. So at this stage, we have coastal Atlantic, Gulf region, Great Lakes region, Midwest River Corridor, the Appalachian River Corridor, and Texas inland lakes. Night, dawn, daylight, urban light pollution, remote shoreline. Low altitude crossings and high altitude drift. The pattern has not fractured. It has widened, and we now move towards synthesis. So, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and skip some of these smaller ones. And here's the last one. About 11 years ago, according to the witness, a woman shared an intriguing story with me. Late one June night, she was walking along University Avenue shortly after 10 p.m. near 300 South when she saw a gigantic black manta ray flying across the Provo, Utah sky. This thing was 400 feet in the air, coming from the southeast, flying northwest. It had a 14-foot wingspan, and the body and tail were probably around 20 feet or 25 feet long. It flew directly over Provo City Tabernacle, now a temple, and eventually disappeared into the night sky. Now, I didn't give this sighting much credence initially, but I decided to share it during a ghost tour. The original Provo, Utah ghost tour with Danny Stewart. It was all in good fun. And there are similar stories of strange flying creatures found all over the world, making it a rarity in Utah, a one-time event, or so I thought. However, in 2013, another woman presented me with an almost identical story. She had seen something in June of 2011 that matched the same size, description, trajectory, and previous sighting. It even appeared around the same time. Years passed, the local ghost and beastie stories were shared. I grew tired of recounting the manta-ray story, and I was about to retire from the ghost tour completely. However, in September 2018, while standing in front of the Provo Temple during one of my tours, I noticed one attendee looking bewildered and somewhat worried. My girlfriend and assistant Tara approached him, and he explained, "I just saw it. Just recently, this year." He described seeing something very similar to the manta ray climbing the side of the old tower at Utah Valley Regional Medical Center. It was big and black, climbing the building's side like a bat would climb a barn door. It then ascended to the top of the tower and leaped off, flying into the night toward the northwest. I've tried to gather more information from the gentleman, but he's been reluctant to share anything further. Now, interestingly, another person came forward a month later with a sighting of a flying ray, though it wasn't connected to the Provo beasties. While I was giving another tour and discussing the ray, I noticed a young man whispering in amazement to his girlfriend. I approached him, and he told me he had seen something exactly like that, what I described while surfing in California. He said it was huge and soaring in and out of the clouds. The sky was overcast, and he watched for 15 minutes as it appeared and vanished within the clouds until it eventually flew out of sight. He had never shared this experience with anyone for fear of being made fun of, and he had nothing to compare it to. Now, in this case, of many people who experience extraordinary events as sightings of what can only be described as ghosts or monsters, well, according to him. People worldwide are encountering things that just don't fit into any historical or mythological framework that they know of. And as a result, they often keep these experiences to themselves. Now, if these individuals are to be believed, they did indeed see some kind of large flying creature above the Provo, Utah sky, which have yet another fascinating cryptological mystery on our hands. So, all in all, you've got a pretty good slice of some of these sightings. And look, I could have put 30 to 40 more sightings up and talked about those. It's I've been working on this for about 15 years now. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm possibly connecting this to, with the translucency in this to other phenomena, maybe even the glimmer man and the ultra-terrestrial aspect of it compared to, like, many times people talk about the winged humanoids in Chicago and elsewhere. So misidentification could explain some of the reports. Now, that Provo bat colony demonstrates that clearly. True investigation requires eliminating the ordinary before entertaining the extraordinary. Several cases don't collapse under a simple explanation, especially the massive translucent gliders observed in Illinois, Kentucky, Illinois, Florida, and West Virginia. 3, the water adjacency pattern is statistically striking. Rivers, lakes, coastal boundaries, bayous. If they're biological entities, water may represent energetic boundaries, navigational markers, or transitional zones. Locomotion. Witnesses across states independently describe a swimming motion through the air, not flapping, not propulsion, swimming. Now, if these are biological creatures, then we're dealing with a form of life that blurs the distinction between technology and organism. If they are ultra-terrestrial, then we may share our environment while remaining outside our dominant perceptual range. If they do originate from another dimensional layer, cloaking may not be technology. It may be native biology. We just don't know yet. And the reports that I presented tonight are just a few of the many interesting encounters and reports I've received over the years. I mean, there are dozens more in my caseload. But after 15 years, I can say this with confidence: the pattern's real. And we're only beginning to understand it. So if you haven't experienced anything like this or had an unexplained encounter or sighting, feel free to send it to the Families of Monsters. And as always, thanks for listening. So folks, if you have questions, let's put them in caps and put them out there, and we'll see what we can do. Could be holograms. Yeah, I guess it could be holograms, but where's the source of the hologram? I mean, you got you're out there in the middle of nowhere somewhere in the middle of a city. Who's putting a hologram out there? I'm not discounting that they could be holograms, but it's pretty unlikely. Paranormalism Net. Could these flying manta rays be living UFOs? Trevor James Constable wrote about. I think they are. I think they are biocraft. And that's what I've called them for a long time. And, there's other examples of UFO studies and that I've seen, pictures that have been sent to me, videos that have been sent to me of UFOs high in the sky that when you get close to them and, you kind of zoom in, you can literally see them morphing into different shapes. Is that the same type of, same type of technology? I don't know. But I believe that these are some type of bioform. Hi Lon, does it ever interact, or could it be a ghost replay of a creature swimming at this level when the sea levels were higher millions of years ago? Sure, it could be. Yeah, we talk about maybe relic species or in zoological and in cryptozoologies all the time. Maybe it was something coming through or something left an imprint, and under the right conditions it manifested somehow. I think that's logical. It's a theory, but it may be logical. Sir Wolf, how far back do these sightings go? Not very far. I believe maybe around the turn of the millennium, so 2000. I don't think there were many before that I'd seen. Now there may be, but I haven't. I may have one or two altogether, but Yeah, I mean, these are fairly recent. Again, is this something that's associated with the Glimmerman phenomenon and other phenomena where people are seeing translucent beings? I don't know. Anything else? Dagnammit, the obvious question, do you think the manta ray and the Mothman is the same thing? Morphology-wise, no, but it very well could be. I mean, perception, perception is 99% of it. But, you get 10 people looking at the same thing, all 10 of them are going to have a little variation as to what they saw. Is this creature showing itself to specific people? Again, that's been a theory that's come up with the Glimmerman and with the winged humanoids. I don't know if it's distinctive or not. I mean, I don't know if it's a distinctive species or something associated with another type of ultra-terrestrial. But I do believe there's some similarities, and is it coming from the same place? Your guess is good as mine. Jose Sanchez, might the manta rays be prehistoric in origin similar to the small dinosaur sightings? Possibly. Possibly. Like I said before, this may be some kind of a time flip or time stamped into, that turns into reality or leaves a murmur or like a, I don't know, like a ghost of another, something that was seen millions of years ago, so hundreds of thousands of years ago. I don't know. Paranormalism Net, have these flying manta rays ever been aggressive or attacked anyone? Not that I know of. It's almost like they don't even really pay much attention to the witnesses, though occasionally somebody says that it kind of does. If it had a face and a head, it kind of seemed like it was aware of the people being around them. Anything else? Dagnammit, do you think more and more cryptids are coming through portals? Oh, I do. I think that's been going on for a long time, but, because of people thinking or ridiculing and thinking people are nuts, they don't say it much. I've been saying that for 30 years now, so, I think there's something to that. Can't prove it yet, but, we can theorize on it. Okay, well, again, I want to thank you all for coming in tonight, and the Glimmerman book was released on Tuesday, so it's on Amazon for sale, or you can go to Beyond the Free Publishing and purchase it off there, or you can go to Phantoms and Monsters and click the graphic. It'll take you right to the Amazon site. So again, thanks for being around, coming in here, and we had a good group tonight and some interesting questions. I hope I didn't bore you too bad, but I wanted to get kind of the details of this thing out there. The one thing I have been thinking about, would this lead to another book? God. I don't know. I need to get more reports. Could I associate it and kind of find other associations with the Glimmerman or even the Mothman or other ultra-terrestrials that fly or are translucent or have aspects to them that are just aren't explainable or very close to each other? That's a thought, but we'll see how that goes. So again, thanks again. Stay aware, stay safe, and always keep looking into the unexplained. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Good night.